Imagine being told you're too ugly to model, too ethnic, too different. They rejected me because I was too kind of like I was very pole in the face. Now imagine proving them so wrong that you end up on 37 Vogue covers, earning more money in a day than most people see in a month. Picture yourself at the absolute peak. Supermodels wanting to be you. Rock stars wanting to date you. Designers fighting over you. Now imagine losing it all. Not slowly, but in a spectacular cascade of cocaine, champagne, and surgical knives. This is the story of Janice Dickinson. And trust me, whatever you think you know about the original supermodels, you haven't heard this one. Because behind those iconic covers, behind that fierce attitude that made her famous was a woman running from demons that started chasing her when she was just a little girl in Brooklyn. And the faster she ran, the harder she fell. Okay, but first let's talk about that rejection that changed everything. Picture this. 1973, New York City. Janice Dickinson, fresh from winning a national modeling contest, walks into the Ford agency, the most powerful modeling agency in America. She's got this striking look, dark hair, full lips, features that scream Mediterranean goddess. And Eileen Ford, the woman who could make or break careers with a single nod, takes one look at her and says, "You're much too ethnic. You'll never work." I mean, can we take a moment? This is the Eileen Ford basically telling Janice she's too what? Too not blonde, too not American looking. But here's where it gets interesting. See, Janice had been hearing versions of this her whole life. Her father, and we'll get to that piece of work later, used to tell her she looked like a boy and wouldn't amount to anything. So, this Ford rejection, it was just another voice in a chorus that had been singing the same song since she was born in Brooklyn on February 16, 1955. But Janice had this quality that you can't teach. Call it spite, call it determination, call it pure rage. Whatever it was, it made her get on a plane to Paris with Wilhelmina Cooper as her agent. And in Paris, oh honey, everything changed. The French took one look at those features Eileen Ford rejected and saw art. Within weeks, she was on her first magazine cover. Not some small publication either. We're talking major European fashion magazines falling over themselves to book this exotic American. Italian, Vogue, French Elle, you name it. She went from you'll never work to working every single day, sometimes multiple shoots a day. And here's the delicious part. She was earning $2,000 a day by the late 7s. Let me put that in perspective. Other top models were making maybe $500. Janice was commanding 4 times the going rate. Every rejection, every cruel word from her father. She was turning it all into cold, hard cash, the girl who was too ethnic for Ford. She didn't just work. She revolutionized what American beauty could look like. By 1978, Janice wasn't just a model. She was the model. And if you wanted to find her after a shoot, there was only one place to look. Studio 54. Now, let me paint you a picture of what Studio 54 meant in the late 70s. This wasn't just a nightclub. This was Sodom and Gomorrah with a better sound system. Behind those velvet ropes, movie stars were doing lines off supermodels' collarbones. Fashion designers were having orgies in the basement, and everyone was high on something. Janice herself said it best. It was a place for us, a place where we could be with the beautiful, do drugs, be out of our minds, and it all seemed normal. Normal. That's the key word here. Because when you're 23 years old and making more money than God, when MC Jagger is sending you flowers and Warren Beatty is leaving messages, when every magazine in the world wants your face, well, doing cocaine for breakfast starts to feel like just another Tuesday. She was everywhere. 37 international Vogue covers, second only to a handful of models in history. 7 consecutive covers of Elle Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Campaigns for Versace, Valentino, Christian Dior, Calvin Klein. She'd work with Azzedine Elia in the morning, party with Jack Nicholson at night, and somehow show up fresh-faced for a Revlon shoot at dawn. But here's what the cameras didn't catch. By her own admission, she was surviving on 1 salad a month and what she called a cocaine diet. At 19 years old, the drugs had already destroyed her appetite. The fashion industry didn't just tolerate this. They encouraged it. Thinner was always better. And if you needed a little chemical help to stay that way, well, that's what the champagne backstage was for. There's this one story that perfectly captures the insanity. Milan Fashion Week. She's walking for one of the biggest designers in the world. She downs 4 glasses of champagne backstage on top of whatever else was in her system and literally stumbles off the runway. Not backstage, not into the wings, right into the front row, landing directly in Sophia Loren's lap. And you know what? Everyone just laughed because that was Janice. Wild, unpredictable, intoxicating. She was making fashion fun in a way those stiff agency girls never could. Karl Lagerfeld adored her. Gianni Versace called her his muse. She had something those all-American blondes didn't have. Danger. And in the late 70s, danger was the hottest currency in fashion. But here's the thing about living at 100 miles per hour. Eventually, you hit a wall. For Janice, that wall had a name: Sylvester Stallone. It's 1993. Janice is 38, which in model years might as well be 80. The phone isn't ringing like it used to. The cocaine diet has given way to bulimia and anorexia. She's had her first mini facelift because she noticed the tiniest hint of jowls. And along comes Rocky himself. All muscles and Hollywood power ready to save her. She gets pregnant. Stallone gets down on one knee. For a minute, it looks like Janice might get her fairy tale ending. The supermodel who marries the movie star and lives happily ever after in a bear mansion. She's carrying his baby, planning their wedding, probably already picking out which designer will make her dress. And then comes the DNA test. The baby isn't his. It's her ex-boyfriend, Michael Birnbaum's. Now, imagine being Janice in that moment. You've built your entire life on being desired, being perfect, being in control. And suddenly, in one test result, it all comes crashing down. Stallone doesn't just leave, he runs. The engagement is off. The fairy tale is over. And the headlines were brutal. Stallone baby shock, supermodel secret, DNA drama. She later said it shattered her. And, honestly, it shattered her image, too, because now she wasn't the untouchable supermodel who dated rock stars and danced on tables at Studio 54. She was a single mom with a complicated past and a very public humiliation. The 90s became her lost decade. By her own account, and she's never been shy about the ugly truth, she was broke at times. The woman who once commanded $2,000 a day claims she was reduced to cleaning toilets to support her kids. Now, was she literally scrubbing bathrooms? Maybe that's classic Janice hyperbole. But the fact that she'd even say it tells you how far she felt she'd fallen. The phone stopped ringing. The magazine covers went to younger models. Kate Moss, Naomi Campbell, the new generation who didn't have baggage splashed across the tabloids. Janice Dickinson, the woman who helped redefine beauty in America, was yesterday's news. But if you think Janice Dickinson was going to go quietly into that good night, honey, you don't know Janice. 2002, she drops a book bomb called No Lifeguard on Duty. And let me tell you, this wasn't some sanitized celebrity memoir with soft focus photos and vague references to difficult times. This was Janice unleashing decades of secrets. Childhood abuse, rape, drug orgies, and a who's who of celebrity lovers described in very vivid detail. Warren Beatty, she rated his performance. Jack Nicholson detailed their wild nights. That story about Jerry Hall pulling a gun on her for sleeping with MC Jagger. It's all in there. The book was part confession, part revenge, and 100% Janice. Suddenly, she's back. Not as a model, but as something even more powerful, a truth-teller. British Vogue called it a cautionary tale about incest, drugs, sex, rock and roll, Studio 54, and fashion. CNN wanted interviews. Publishers wanted more books. And a certain reality TV producer named Ken Mock had an idea. Enter America's Next Top Model, 2003. When Tyra Banks was putting together her model competition show, she needed credibility. She needed someone who'd been there, done that, and wasn't afraid to tell these wannabe models exactly how brutal the industry could be. I think this is the right way. You got to work on the thighs. Enter Janice Dickinson, self-proclaimed world's first supermodel, ready to terrorize a new generation. And terrorize she did. While the other judges played nice, Janice was serving pure, unfiltered honesty. "You're dead in my book. Where's my oxygen tank?" She'd sigh when bored. She'd roll her eyes, deliver devastating one-liners, make contestants cry. She was Simon Cowell and stilettos, and America couldn't look away. For 4 seasons, she was the judge you loved to hate or hated to love. But either way, you were watching. A whole new generation who'd never heard of her Vogue covers now knew her as the scary judge with the surgical face and the sharp tongue. But here's where it gets messy. Because Janice and Tyra, they were oil and water. Tyra wanted to build girls up. Janice wanted to tear them down to see who was strong enough to survive. Tyra smiled. Janice snarled. And by 26, Tyra had had enough. The firing was brutal. One day, Janice was the veteran supermodel passing down wisdom. The next, she was replaced by Twiggy. And Janice, she didn't go quietly. Cast out from ENTM, Janice did what any rational person would do. She went full reality TV villain. 2005 VH1's The Surreal Life. If you weren't watching reality TV in the mid-200s, let me explain. This was where famous people went to be messy on camera for money. And Janice, she was magnificent at being messy. They put her in a house with Omar Rosa from The Apprentice, and it was like throwing 2 angry cats in a bag. The cameras caught them trading insults that would make a sailor blush. But then came the incident. During a photo shoot, someone hands Janice a prop knife and Janice, allegedly under the influence of something, starts waving it near Omar Rosa's face. "I'll have your weave on the floor, ___." The footage is insane. Bronson Pinchot literally has to step between them. Omar Rosa is screaming about a crackhead with a knife. Producers are probably calling their lawyers. And Janice. She later claimed it was all a joke, that the editing made it look worse than it was. But honey, when you're waving a knife at someone on camera, editing can only do so much. Then came the Tyra feud of 2007. Oh my God, Janice goes on The Today Show. The Today Show. And when they're discussing body image and Jennifer Love Hewitt being called fat, Janice just casually drops. "You want to see someone who's fat? Tyra Banks is fat." The aftermath was swift and brutal. Tyra did a whole episode of her talk show in a bathing suit, telling critics to kiss my fat ass. The media went wild. Janice was banned from NBC. And suddenly, she wasn't just the mean judge from ENTM. She was the bitter ex-supermodel who attacked other women's bodies. But the reality TV train wreck wasn't done. 2015 British celebrity Big Brother. Janice is 60 years old and she's still starting fights. She gets into a screaming match with some young model named Austin Armacost over hot water for a bath. A bath. It escalates until Janice literally spits at him. "There's no hot water, Janice." "Yeah, because guess who? Selfish. We had to meet ___. What is your house? All you've done is wiped your ass since you've been here. You're not victim of, did she just spit at him? You've done nothing or pretends to spit or makes a spitting motion." The footage is unclear, but Big Brother gives her an official warning. And then, as if the universe decided she hadn't been through enough, she gets stung by a bee on camera and has a full-blown allergic reaction seizure on the diary room floor. The footage is genuinely terrifying. Janice convulsing, medics rushing in, everyone panicking. She survived, returned to the house, but the damage was done. She'd become the literal embodiment of reality TV disaster. But here's the thing about all those reality shows, all that acting out. They were band-aids on a much deeper wound. And that wound had a price tag. Remember that mini facelift at 32? The one she got when Stallone mentioned her jowls? That was just the beginning. By her own admission, in a book literally titled "Everything About Me is Fake and I'm Perfect," Janice had lost count of her procedures, multiple facelifts, at least 2 breast augmentations, tummy tuck, brow lift, Botox until her forehead couldn't move, lip injections until they looked like pool floats. She was chasing her 1978 face with a scalpel and a credit card, and the bills were adding up. By 2013, the house of cards collapsed. Janice Dickinson, the woman who once commanded $2,000 a day, filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The details were brutal. $500,000 owed to the IRS in California in back taxes, $8,000 to one Beverly Hills plastic surgeon, another $8,000 to a different cosmetic doctor, tens of thousands more to various dermatologists and clinics, an eviction lawsuit for unpaid rent. The total nearly $1 million in debt. The tabloids had a field day. First supermodel, last in line to pay. Broke for Botox. Here was living proof of what happens when you try to fight time with a credit card. Every injection, every nip, every tuck had been another step toward financial ruin. When Inside Edition asked her about it, she gave that trademark Janice shrug. She'd rather be broke but happy than miserable with money. But there's something heartbreaking about a woman who built an empire on her face, losing everything trying to keep it. And then, as if the universe wasn't done with its cruel jokes, 2016 brought the ultimate irony. Breast cancer. The implants she'd maintained for decades were suddenly threatened by the very treatment trying to save her life. 2 lumpectomies, radiation. The survival rate was good, but the symbolism was impossible to ignore. Her body was literally rejecting the artificial perfection she'd paid so much to achieve. Here's the thing about Janice Dickinson. She's impossible to kill. Not her body, not her spirit, and definitely not her attitude. At 47, drowning in pills and booze and whatever else she could get her hands on, she finally hit the bottom she'd been racing towards since she was 19 at Studio 54. But instead of staying down, she crawled into a 12-step meeting. "Thank God for a program of 12 steps," she said, "because it saved my life." The cancer tried to take her out. She survived. The bankruptcy tried to humble her. She bounced back. Every public humiliation, every cruel headline, every bridge burned. She's still here. In 2016, the same year she was getting radiation for breast cancer, she married Dr. Robert Rocky Gurner, a psychiatrist, because of course Janice Dickinson would marry a shrink. And now at 70, she's become something unexpected. She's in on the joke. Watch her recent appearances. She shows up to events in outrageous outfits, makes fun of her own plastic surgery, drops one-liners about her bankruptcy. She's turned herself into a character, and she's playing it to the hilt. When she slams Kendall Jenner in the Hadids for being nepotism models who just stand there, she knows exactly what headlines it'll generate. When she tells another wild story about stealing Trump's limo in the 80s, she's winking at the camera. But here's what kills me. She still insists she coined the term supermodel. Despite historians pointing out the word existed decades before her, despite other models rolling their eyes. She tells the story about joking to her agent in 1979. "I'm not a model, honey. I'm a supermodel." And she'll go to her grave swearing that's where it all started. And maybe that's the most Janice Dickinson thing of all. The woman who was told she was too ethnic to model, who built an empire and lost it all, who survived addiction and cancer and public humiliation. She's still fighting for her place in history, still demanding recognition, still refusing to be erased. She's not the first supermodel. The history books are clear on that. But she might be the last of a certain breed. The ones who lived so hard and fast that they burned their own legends into our collective memory before Instagram. Before carefully curated images, before media training and PR teams, just pure unfiltered messy humanity wrapped in a gorgeous package that cost $1 million to maintain. You can judge her for the drugs, the debt, the drama. You can roll your eyes at her claims and cringe at her reality TV meltdowns, but you can't ignore her. And in an industry built on being seen, maybe that's the greatest victory of all. Janice Dickinson is still here, still standing, still impossible. And honestly, we wouldn't want her any other way.